Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Andy Hodges, live from ZTN studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. Welcome to our virtual discussion. Mineral leakages. Is Zimbabwe's Auditor-General spot on? This broadcast is brought to you by Zimbabwe's TV network ZTN and our partners, Transparency International Zimbabwe, TIZ. Now, should you have any comments or views on our show this afternoon, please contact us via our Facebook page, Zimbabwe's TV network, or via our Twitter handle @ZTN News. The much-awaited 2019 Auditor-General's report was tabled in Zimbabwe's parliament on the 16th of June 2021. Now, in her report, the Auditor-General had no kind words to say about the operations of the Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company, or ZCDC. The report stated that ZCDC had failed to account for the use of money exceeding $400 million, while also failing to properly account for over 352,000 carats of diamonds worth about $146 million, which were in stock, raising the possibility that they could have been stolen. In her 2019 report on state enterprises, Auditor General Mildred Chiri said she doubted the company's ability to continue operating due to losses while questioning some of the investments of the company. The Auditor General is worried that ZCDC may not be able to recover money it invested in companies which have since folded. Now, coupled with the Zimbabwean government's own projections that at least $100 million US of gold is being smuggled out monthly, or around $1.2 billion per annum, just emphasizes the amount of leakages in the extractive sector. The Auditor General's report also highlighted that most audit committees and government ministries are failing to carry out their oversight functions on the financial reporting processes and reviewing of internal controls. And furthermore, that the Ministry of Mines had not yet finalized the risk management policy, which had remained in draft form for the past 3 years. The 2019 OAG report reveals that out of the 356 recommendations made by the OAG in 2018, only 26% were fully implemented, 25% partially implemented, and 49% were not implemented at all. The same trend can be witnessed from the 435 recommendations made in 2017. Now, to discuss mineral leakages, is Zimbabwe's Auditor General spot on? We are joined virtually this afternoon by Zack. She's Programs Officer at Transparency International Zimbabwe. Wellington Pasipamire, Board Chairperson, Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company. Honorable Edmund Mukaratigwa, Chairperson of Zimbabwe's Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Mines and Mining Development. And Commissioner John Makamure, Spokesperson, Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. Welcome all to the show. Edmund, let me start with you. Now, Edmund, the 2019 Auditor General's report highlighted some anomalies with regards to the mining sector in Zimbabwe, some of which I've gone through. Maybe you could just clarify and maybe expand. What exactly were the exemptions identified by the AG in the 2019 report as it relates to the mining sector? Edmund?
Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Edmund, can you hear me?
The Auditor General's report highlighted a lot of loopholes in the extractive industry, the diamond extractive sector, to do with ZCDC, but most of the issues they highlighted to do with the legacy activities, and they hinge on the leakages in the mining sectors, and which points to perhaps lack of systems. I'm talking about control systems, or where systems are there in place, there's basically lack of implementation. And if I may be explicit and say, which points to prevalence of corrupt tendencies in this particular sector.
Thank you. Fazai, it's interesting there what Edmund said. I mean, he said that the report it identified leakages and loopholes, particularly in the diamond extractive sector. It looks like a lack of control systems, or flouting of systems, or lack of implementation. And also, more importantly, he highlighted that this could obviously be around corruption. So, in your opinion, Fazai, why is transparency and accountability in the mining sector important? And what are your general comments on the sections of the AG's report as it concerns the extractive sector?
Okay, thank you, Andy. I think to begin with, we'll start by unpacking what transparency and accountability means in the mining sector. So transparency refers to providing credible information in a timely manner, and also information which is accessible to the general public and all the interested stakeholders, whilst accountability refers to holding the government to be responsible for their actions and impact. So transparency and accountability in the mining sector is important because it allows for building confidence in the management of the resources, and it also allows for the fact that the government is holding these resources and managing them on behalf of the citizens. It is within the people's Section 62 rights, the right to information, and it's the people's right to know how much is being realized from the exploitation and how it's being managed and contributing to sustainable development. The 2019 Auditor-General's report shows that there are certain levels of impunity, there are certain levels of incompetence, there are certain levels of mismanagement, and also failure to adhere to general principles of the law of contract. So one wonders if we're going to be able to attain the 12 million mining economy by 2023.
Yes, Wellington, let me come to you, because as I said in my opening, the AG's Mildred Chiri's report was not kind to your company, Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company, ZCDC. And in fact, you heard there what Fadzai said. She talked about the report highlighting impunity and possibly even incompetence. So what are your general comments on the findings of the Auditor General's report as it relates, I suppose, to your company, ZCDC?
Thank you, Andy. I'm sure you can hear me loud and clear.
We can, sir. We can.
I can proceed.
Yes, please go ahead.
And thank you, Honorable Kalatirwa, for those kind and robust opening remarks. And thank you as well, Fadzai, for bringing up the issues that we have articulated very well. I think I just need to make a disclaimer very quickly, Andy, that obviously as chair for the ZCDC board, we are fully committed to the implementation of the audit findings and set of recommendations that is given to us as ZCDC by the Office of the Auditor-General, in terms of the mandate of that office is guided by Section 309 of the Constitution and equally by the Audit Office Act, Section 10. So I think the office does all within its mandate to be able to discharge this functionality, and we take the Auditor General's report as our Bible in terms of our mandate as ZCDC. And obviously, while I'm dealing with these specific matters, I would also want to indicate, Andy, that we are not in any way going to contradict or to cast any aspersions in terms of the audit findings as espoused by the Auditor General's office. Our responsibility and duty as a board of the ZCDC is to study the document, implement the set of recommendations, and do whatever is necessary in order to bring about the corrective action that is required for the sustainable growth of your company. I say your company because ZCDC is a public interest entity, therefore it is the company of the citizens. And now coming to address to the specific question that has been raised by Fadzai, certainly there are issues to do with the extractive industry transparency initiative. I'm sure Fadzai is aware of that, which specifically speaks to issues around transparency, accountability, the revenue flow of what comes out of ZCDC to the physicals, and the revenue allocation of those funds as well when it goes to the physicals, and the socio-economic impact and output of that process. And issues to do with ESG, amongst other several attributes with regards to transparency and accountability. Allow me to say that as ZCDC, we are very much alive to the fact of these issues that are being raised. And I can confidently say that yes, the report that has been issued covers the financial year 2019 and 2018. And some of the issues, I think, by way of opening remark, have since been overtaken by events when we now look at year end 2020 to year end 2021.
Yeah, Wellington,
so
sorry, Wellington, let me just jump in there if you don't mind. Okay, because it's now 2021, as you've said, and of course your board has been in operation. I mean, the use of money, $400 million, which appears to be failure to account, and also 352,000 carats of diamonds apparently gone missing. I mean, I suppose, as I would always say, sir, where is the money and where are the carats, if I can say that? You as a board must know about these issues, correct?
Certainly, I would want to correct that statement, Andy, that the issue of the 300 plus thousand carats is an accounting issue. Okay, there is a physical stock count that took place during the process of this audit investigation, and then there's the theoretical process which also happened at the same time. So when it came to these closing stock balances, there was now the issue of how come this 332,000 carats had not been incorporated in the closing stock account. And this was a result of our sales and distribution module, which is an SAP module, which was not functional at that time. Okay. Which I can confidently say it has since been rectified. It is up and running, and the 331,000 carats is not that they're missing; they have been accounted for.
And the $400 million US dollars?
The $400 million US dollars, and probably I would want to maybe bring your attention to the contents of the audit report itself, right? Because the $400 million we are talking about, this is now in Zim dollar terms, right? I want to explain this further. When you look at the report itself, there is the issue to do with a valuation of investments in certain companies where ZCDC put money. This is talking about DTZ, where $24 million is made reference to, and another $20 million is made reference to. So $400 million is a restatement because of the functional currency process that prevailed during that time. So I can easily go into detail to articulate what constituted the US dollar component of that 400 million and the US dollar component of the balance of that 400 million.
Okay, and I think as usual for any Auditor General's report, you obviously as a company will be making submissions back to explain some of the anomalies. Thank you for that, Wellington. Edmund, you heard there what Wellington said. He's the chairperson of ZCDC. Do you have any comments, sir? Edmund, I think you have to unmute your microphone. Please go ahead, Honourable.
Hi, thank you very much. From his contribution, all I can deduce is as the legislature, we have a mammoth task to make sure we attend to the prevailing challenges which are actually resulting in a lot of leakages within the mining sector, not only the diamond sector. And this is actually standing in the way of our focus to actually attain the $12 billion industry target by 2023. Why do we continue to have challenges obtaining in the mining sector in general? It's a question that one needs to actually attend to, and as a portfolio committee on mines and mining development, we are actually concerned, and we are having deliberations and hoping we can actually be capacitated to actually tackle this challenge head on. But I must say we need to understand where this challenge is coming from. Usually, this challenge is emanating from the fact that there is risk appetite and risk opportunity among the key hazard aspects in institutions like ZCDC and others in the mining fraternity. And there is the prevalence of risky costs to the perpetrators. And by risk appetite, what we are saying is it speaks to the desire to take the risk by those involved in corrupt tendencies.
Okay,
or malpractice.
Edmund, if I can jump in there. Edmund, we've known about the smuggling in our extractive sector. Gold has been mentioned, diamonds have been mentioned in the past, and we're not just talking about those two minerals. There's a whole bunch of minerals whereby they're being smuggled across our porous borders. The police apparently don't have the capacity to monitor our entire borders, and this has been going on for many years. Yet it appears, though, we're no closer to stopping the leakages in the extractive sector than we were over 5-6 years ago. So what can your committee, what can Parliament do about this so that we can use that money being smuggled out of the country for the good of the nation and put it into social services, into health, into education, and even to boost the mining sector locally? What can you do about it and to make it effectively stop smuggling or leakages in the mineral sector? Edmund? All right, we'll have to try and see if we can get Edmund back there. Let me bring in Commissioner John Makamure. John, welcome to the show. John, the AG's report mentioned that the ZDDC had failed to account for the use of money exceeding...
Sorry, my network broke there.
All right, John, let me come back to you. Let me just finish with Edmund. Edmund, what I was saying was that, you know, with $1.2 billion in gold being smuggled out of the country, with possibly some leakages in the diamond sector, leakages in the chrome sector, in fact, in all mineral sectors. But this has been happening for too many years to count. Yet it appears that the smuggling continues going on unabated. What can we do about it? What can you as Parliament, what can you as your committee do or help to do to stop this smuggling and the loss of wealth which could be spent on our social services, on our health, on our education, on our transport? What can you do about it?
Thank you very much. We need to act responsibly. By this, I mean those in offices of authority, they must ensure that they enforce the law. And when there are gaps in the law, as legislators, we should attend to those gaps. We should seek to know why the gaps are existing. We should identify the gaps, and we should, from time to time, seek to strengthen the legislative gap so much that
Edmund, sorry, can you, Edmund, sorry to jump in, sir, but can you just move your camera? You're now sort of talking horizontally. Can you move it? Thank you so much. Sorry, now please continue. Apologies for coming in the middle of your thoughts. Please continue. You're saying people must act responsibly.
I hope you were hearing what I was contributing.
Yes, sir, we could hear you. Please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, Edmund.
Okay. Talking of the need to act responsibly. I was talking of the need to act responsibly for the office bearers in order to foster sustainability in mining operations and the trading of the mineral resources. This can only be achieved by being transparent and being accountable, by putting in place systems from the office bearers that will see implementation in good faith and religiously. And those that fail to adhere to the lawful rules and procedures should actually be brought to book. They must be prosecuted. They must be given stiffer sentences. And I was saying from a legislative perspective, legislators should actually be capacitated. They must seek to identify the gaps that are in existence. And from time to time, we should seek to actually close the gaps by strengthening the law and ensuring that the enforcers, the law enforcers, the office bearers in mining houses are in a quest to make sure they are in compliance, or then use good laws that call for good practice. And to that extent, we should also look at the global perspective and be able to adhere to international good practice, which will always bring immense benefit to our own local perspective.
Thank you, Honourable. Commissioner, let me bring you in here. John, the AG's report, of course, we've mentioned the money, the 400 million. We've mentioned the carrots that they say allegedly may have been stolen. And also we've heard Wellington's response about what the issues are. Maybe it's an accounting issue or not. But it's still bearing that all aside, John, what is your role in implementing the recommendations by the Auditor-General, particularly as it relates to ZCDC and other entities? And what do you exactly do? I mean, once you've received the report, what is the next step as it relates to Zack?
Thank you very much, Andy. As the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, we are also very concerned with the Auditor-General's findings. The rampant corruption in the mining sector is a cause for serious concern. So the Commission, of course, is seized with the matter. Once the Auditor-General has released findings and the report has been tabled in Parliament, we have got a memorandum of understanding with the Auditor-General. So what we do is we engage each other, understand better the findings, then we identify those that we believe are of a corruption nature, because not all of the Auditor-General's findings are corruption related. So we identify those that of a corruption nature. And some of the examples of corruption would be like fraud issues, illicit financial flows, embezzlement, bribery, extortion. So things like that. These are the forms of corruption that we then pursue as a commission.
But John, if I can,
so we try to get more information.
Yeah, John, if I can jump in here, though. I mean, we've had previous Auditor-General's reports in 2018, 2017, etc., which critics allege did highlight these forms of corruption you're talking about, fraud, outright corruption, etc. Yet it appears, and I say appears, that no action has been taken against perpetrators in those previous reports. How now can we assume that Zack will then act on the 2019 report?
You can be assured that Zack will act. In fact, just to correct that, it's not true that Zack has not acted on previous Auditor-General's recommendations. We have, and there are so many public officials and other officials in the private sector being investigated. Some have already appeared before the courts. And so far this year, we've got about now 80 dockets that we have submitted to the NPA. And some of those dockets arise from the Auditor-General's reports. And it's not only about investigation and sanctioning the culprits, but we have also looked at the Auditor-General's findings and recommendations and then gone to these entities to undertake what we call further systems and compliance reviews and make recommendations. So we've got the investigating side, but we also have got what we call the systems and compliance side, where we try to ensure that some of those recommendations, which really are not criminal in nature, are implemented so that we plug loopholes for corruption. So I can assure you that we are very much seized with the matter. I know that it's because of COVID that we have not been able to have a physical meeting with the Auditor-General, but it's a priority for the Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. You're watching our discussion this afternoon. Mineral leakages. Is Zimbabwe's Auditor-General spot on? This broadcast is brought to you by Zim Paper's TV network ZTN and our partners, Transparency International Zimbabwe, TIZ. Now, as usual, should you have any comments or views on our show this afternoon, please contact us via our Facebook page, Zim Paper's TV network, or via our Twitter handle @ZTN News. Fadzai, I'd like to bring you in here. You know, we've been talking about leakages in the extractive sector, in the mining sector. We did use an example of ZCDC, but really what are the implications of leakages in the mining sector, particularly to Zimbabwe and to our economy?
Okay, thank you, Andy. The leakages that we see in the Auditor-General's report year in, year out, they've got a tendency of encouraging abuse of power. They also affect the country's performance on governance indicators, such as the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index. Zimbabwe continues to rank lowly because of such mismanagement and such loopholes within the mining sector. And it obviously affects the foreign direct investments into the country. And in the long run, it also affects the socio-economic development within the country. Above all, it then limits everyone to enjoy the resources, the benefits from the resources, because it will just be benefiting a few elite. And we can call those the politically exposed persons. So those are the main effects of the leakages within the mining sector.
And of course, it does have a direct impact on our economy because it's losing money that we could use, as I said earlier, for social services and for social protection money, or even health, education, etc. That is now just going out of our country to foreign lands. Fadzai?
Yes, and if we look at this this time around, we are faced with a pandemic. We really need money to rebuild our hospitals, to get vaccinations, and not focus or rely solely on donations. So this money, the amounts that are mentioned within the Auditor-General's report, we could have been far as a nation as far as fighting this pandemic is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Wellington, I want to come, let me come to you. Now, I will hasten to add, of course, that although we are talking about the ZCDC, and thank you as the chairperson for appearing on the show this afternoon, however, this sort of mismanagement or exceptions identified by the AG also goes into other extractive sectors, into state-owned enterprises, and also government ministries. So, however, we do have the ZCDC here, so I will ask questions specifically about your company. Sir, do you have the capacity as ZCDC, in your opinion, to manage the mining of diamonds and alluvial gold in a transparent and accountable manner? Can you do it in that way?
Thank you, Andy, for that very strategic question. And depending on how much time I have, Andy, I would want to quickly ventilate the ZCDC story in a very concise manner, so at least the public is develops the level of confidence that their company is in safe hands.
Unfortunately, you don't have too much time, but you just have enough time, sir, not too much.
That's fine. So obviously, I would want to address the questions that you raised in your preliminary points, and the questions of a going concern nature that Fadzai raised earlier, and a few issues that are contained in the report while I'm addressing your question, Andy. And it would be incomplete for me not to discuss about the nature and dynamics of this business from a legacy point of view since consolidation in 2016. But however, very quickly, Andy, there are some issues that are very glaring that are cited in the report from the Auditor-General to do with valuation of investment in a subsidiary company to the amount of $20.295856 million. This relates to a company called TIZ or Zigo, right? I'll just give a brief analysis of this amount, which is now covered, which is going to be covered in the 2020-2021 financial year. But this investment evaluation of this company at net asset value level was done in 2016, and the NAV value came to an amount of about $4.6 million. And ZCDC went into a commercial transaction and paid $6.5 million for 60% of this company and took over liabilities to the amount of $11 million US. And later on, ZCDC paid 40 to acquire the additional 40%, another $3.6 million to have total control of this entity. However, Andy, I should emphasize that this is not a lost investment, right? In exchange for this payment, DTZ gave ownership of its portal in Chimanimani, what we call Portal E, which is a diamond concession with all the plant and equipment, which is currently running as we speak in what we call project phase of that portal. So we have not lost value in this investment. We've actually exchanged value because of this process.
Okay, but
right?
Wellington, before you move on from there, hang on, you're saying that DTZ was valued at just over $4 million, but in total, ZCDC paid over $11 million for it, plus $11 million of liabilities. That sounds like a very good deal for DTZ.
Yes, from an equity acquisition point of view, we bought into shares, not into assets of the business. So I think from a prudence point of view, buying an equity acquisition in an existing operation, it means you take over liabilities. So it depends on the kind of acquisition model that we apply at any point in time.
Okay.
But we believe as a board and management of ZCDC that there's value in this investment, and we are going to recoup this investment. The assets are still there. There's project economics when you look at Portal E. So for us, it is not a loss as far as this investment is concerned.
Wellington, Mildred Chiri states, though, that said she's worried that ZCDC may not be able to operate as a going concern. And in fact, looking at your investments or the bad investments that she states, together with some of the other anomalies, that quite frankly, ZCDC is broke and shouldn't be in business. Your comment?
Thank you very much for that observation, Andy. I'll explain it in multiple ways. Number one, Andy, when ZCDC was consolidated in 2016, there was a number of legacy issues, right? And when you look between the year 2010 to the year 2014, right? 2011. The figure of carat production was almost 12 million carats. And from 2014 onwards, that figure was on a decline. And ZCDC for the past 4 or 5 years, between 2016 to 2019, is not declared a profit, right? Because of viability issues, because of legacy issues, because of other issues related to that transition post-consolidation. But however, Andy, I need to emphasize that when we took over as the new board of ZCDC in April 2020, our mandate was very clear from our principal that, okay, go and sort out the problems at ZCDC, right? Mm-hmm. I'll not call them problems, but rather challenges. So what we set out to do as the new board was to come and have a diagnostic look at what exactly is the problem at ZCDC. The first thing that we looked at was to do a balance sheet restructure. We look at the debt profile of ZCDC. Some of the debt is legacy debt. Some of it is recurring debt. So we said, okay, fine. What do we do as a board to be able to deal with this balance sheet? Because we didn't have an attractive balance sheet. And from our resource portfolio, we didn't have a resource that could sustain us into the future as far as production is concerned. And obviously, we had to look at our human resources. And mind you, Andy, I should emphasize that ZCDC, between the period 2016 to 2019, we commissioned a forensic audit report, right? The forensic audit report focused on 6 critical issues, which is your HR issues, which is your supply chain, which is your procurement, which is your audit matters, which is your what we call conglomerate plant, which had been installed at the mine to process diamonds, your security issues, your internal systems, and etc., etc. So this forensic audit, we then had to sit down as a board to say, okay, fine, we've got the final forensic audit that has come through. What are the action points for us as a board in line with our balanced risk structure approach to be able to align ZCDC? So I am happy to report, right, now focusing on the going concern issues around ZCDC, that ZCDC as board and management, we are very confident that we are a going concern company, and for 2020, we are preparing our accounts on a going concern concept basis.
All right.
So,
sorry, Wellington, I have to jump in there. So, you know, it looks like we're going to have a whole program talking about the diamond industry. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I do have to bring my other guests in. But, Wellington, I'm definitely going to get you back on the show to talk about the diamond and also your company, ZCDC. You're watching our discussion this afternoon. Mineral leakages. Is Zimbabwe's Auditor-General spot on? This broadcast is brought to you by Zim Papers, TV Network, ZTN, and our partners, Transparency International Zimbabwe, TIZ. John, I want to bring you in here because it's a two-part question, and I'll have to ask you all to be brief on your responses because we are running out of time. John, are there any current investigations to ensure transparency and accountability in the mining sector that Zack is actually carrying out? In your opinion, what do you think can be done? Because we're talking here about a $12 billion mining sector by 2023. What can we do better from Zack's point of view?
Thank you very much, Andy. Yes, I can confirm that there are investigations currently underway. Quite a number of reports have been submitted to the Commission, and thanks to our whistleblowers who have given us some vital information. So there are quite several cases that the Commission is handling, and the 2019 Auditor-General's report is also of keen interest. But in addition to investigations, prosecution, and punitive sanctions, we must ensure that the whole process of contracting, the whole process is to do with the disclosure of information, participation of citizens in the mining sector. All those things are above board, and that there is transparency in that area. And we must ensure that the institutions that are mandated with ensuring accountability and transparency in the mining sector are adequately capacitated to be able to do their job. There's so much bribery in the mining sector. There's so much extortion, and it's actually sickening, And you know what? It's because also of the bureaucracy and red tape that is involved, where some people who end up paying bribes in order to jump the queue. If you look at the whole process of, contracting, getting a mining right, problems of double allocation of claims. And there's so much that is happening. It's because of the bureaucracy and red tape. So if we can eliminate all that.
So, John, then, that brings me to two questions from your comments. The first then, you've just explained some of the shenanigans going on in the mining sector and extractive industries. Does Zack have the capacity to actually conduct in-depth investigations within the sector due to these complications? And also, are you calling, if I'm hearing you right, are you calling for stronger laws, stronger penalties, particularly against those caught with corrupt tendencies in the extractive sector or in any other sector in Zimbabwe? Is this what you're calling for? Commissioner? Okay, it appears that we've lost the commissioner there, but we'll get him back because it was an important question. Edmund, let me come to you. Edmund, they say that the Auditor-General's report is issued, it's presented to Parliament, everybody discussed it for a few weeks, and then we all wait for the next auditor's report in the next year. So I suppose I have a two-part question for you. One, what are you now going to do about it? As Parliament, you've now got the report. What specific actions are you going to take as it relates to the Auditor-General's report? And also another question which came from one of our viewers, and thank you for this. They said, why are we waiting so long for the Auditor-General's report? Because as Wellington put there, some of the exceptions may have been overtaken by events. Why can't we get it like any company, any public listed company or any private company, get the Auditor-General's report almost instantaneously or as soon as possible after the close of the financial year? That's a two-part question for you, Honourable. Now you have to unmute. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. I didn't hear the first part because of connectivity, but I heard what are you going to do about it as a committee, am I right?
Yes, sir. We're saying that now you have the Auditor-General's report. There's going to be discussions, obviously debates in Parliament. But what specific actions are you going to take as a Mines and Mining Development Committee in Parliament to make sure that these things are looked at and we change it for the better going forward? That's number one. And the second question, of course, is how can we speed up the AG's report so that we get it in good time so that we can act on the information in real time rather than being overtaken by events?
Thank you very much. In the eyes of certain publics, Parliamentary Portfolio Committee.
Okay, we appear to be having sound problems. Edmund, can you hear me?
Question. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead. You're just having a bit of sound problem. Please go ahead.
So I was saying Parliament further questioned the respective ministers and administrators of departments in the House, as well as moving motions around the matter where it has gone beyond consensus of the House towards certain decisions towards the given ministry, implicated public servants and the associated political leadership. A lot is also done behind the camera. Follow-ups, for example, are done through appointed subcommittees to ensure a manageable, intensive targeting where something is to be achieved. These subcommittees report to the main committee and is usually even more effective. The chairperson is also sometimes empowered by the committee to follow up on specific matters, just as anyone can be appointed to follow up as resolved by the committee. So I always have the mandate of the committee when I perhaps act solely. Sometimes quite difficult discussions go on, and it is also about
Honourable? We must be having... Hello, can you hear me, sir? Yeah, please go ahead. Honourable, I do like what you're saying, quite frankly, but the fact is this, though. I mean, to me, it almost appears that this issue of leakages in the mining sector is actually, let's call it a national problem. It should be given that sort of status, with all stakeholders working daily together to stop it happening. Okay, maybe, and John, I'm not sure if John is here, but Fadzai, let me say that to you. I mean, the amount of money we're talking about in leakages in the extractive sector and the mining sector is so large that it appears that the type of urgency given to it should expand exponentially by even 1,000% so that we can actually put an end to it. What would you say to that, Fadzai?
Okay, thank you, Andy. I think we should go back to basic rules of procurement. For example, we hear that from the Auditor-General's report that CDC purchased goods which were not delivered to the tune of 300,000. And if nothing is done, we now have questions like, who are the beneficial owners? Who are these companies that are supplying ZCDC? And surely if you know that an audit is coming, order those goods that they're not delivered, you make an effort to have them delivered prior to the auditor's report. And there's an issue of protection of whistleblowers. Commissioner Makamure spoke about whistleblowers who are coming through to Zack, and they're giving them information, but who is protecting these whistleblowers? Because from what we're seeing, there's less political will in covering the loopholes within the mining sector. And if you look at our constitution is very clear. It's a good constitution, and it speaks of principles of good governance. And we don't see these in our mining companies, which then leaves us with many questions, and which then deteriorates the public trust within these institutions. And for us, we then say that there's definitely abuse of power somewhere for private gain.
Thank you for that. Wellington, let me come to you. I think I can give you the final question as we are running out of time. Wellington, bearing in mind the adverse comments in the report directly aimed at your organization, you heard there Fazai talk about the good governance, lack of accountability, lack of transparency. We spoke earlier about procurement issues and issuing of tenders and contracts to goods not delivered. I mean, what now? What are you going to do as an organization, as a board going forward? What are you going to do to fix these issues, and also to make sure from this point going forward things are done differently at ZCDC?
Okay, Andy, thank you for that question. Please, can you give me a minute to respond to that question, if you don't mind, Andy, because it is very important for ZCDC to actually put to rest some of these issues. Number one, the 332,000 carats that is being referred to, those are not missing diamonds. It's because of, a systems failure, which is the S&P module, which is now up and running. So that has been sorted out.
Right.
So it's not missing diamonds,
okay.
Number one. Number two, and quickly, the issue that we've raised as a board and management, we've resolved all the issues that have come out in the Auditor-General's report. I can say safely that most of the issues that have come out of this report that have got materiality, we've resolved them as a board and management. Number three, Andy, how is ZCDC going to contribute? I think that is very important to demonstrate to you that we are transparent and we are accountable. How is ZCDC going to contribute to the US $1 billion diamond sector revenue? Number one, right? ZCDC has gone on an optimization drive, right? In terms of geology, in terms of engineering services, in terms of its supply chain, in terms of its plant and equipment, in terms of its HR practices across the mining vertical, right? Number two, our diamond breakage rate, Andy, between 2016 to 2019, what we call diamond breakage rate was almost beyond 66%, right? So diamond breakage rate, when you liberate your diamonds and it breaks at that rate, which means you don't extract sufficient value for the final product. I can tell you now, Andy, that our diamond breakage rate as we speak is below 40%. And by the third quarter of this year or fourth quarter, we want to bring it down to 20%. What does that mean? It means the final product and its value and content just increases exponentially. Number three, value addition, Andy. Value addition is a critical component of this business. Over the years, we've been selling our diamonds raw, and we've been getting huge discounts because our diamonds were being sold to international markets in their raw form, right? Why can't we be like Botswana? Botswana, they moved their value addition assets from London in 2010 or 14 to Botswana. Now everything is valued in Botswana. So as ZCDC, we then took a strategic position, which, by the way, is an Africa mission perspective at AU level, to say that's the plan. Let's, in terms of the industrialization program for Africa, countries that are implementing this strategy invest into value addition assets. So that's exactly what we are doing as ZCDC, to value add our diamonds, so that at least when we sell our diamonds to the national market, we realize the correct value for our product. So based on those fundamental principles, I can confirm, Andy, that for the first time this year, notwithstanding the ravaging effect of COVID, ZCDC is going to declare a profit. For the first time, it's going to declare a profit.
That is breaking news, Wellington. Thank you. That is breaking news. So you will declare a profit, but you also are committing that ZCDC will be accountable, transparent, exhibit good governance, and as you said, contribute to the bottom line of our country. Very, very quickly.
Yes, I can confirm, and that in terms of the extractive industry transparent initiative, there are 55 implementing countries, and as we speak, as ZCDC with other stakeholders, which include government, civic society, we are finding mechanisms to work together so that we become part and parcel of that organ.
All right.
Right. So we are actually in the process of working on those things to be able to deliver the transparency and accountability issues that you make reference to.
Thank you for that, Wellington. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Edmund, I am going to give you the final say because we did cut you off. Edmund, I think Zimbabweans are tired of rhetoric. They see the leakages, they're reported every day. It runs to billions of US dollars per annum. It doesn't look like there seems to be any hardcore commitment to stop these leakages. Edmund, when are we going to see action rather than words?
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please go
because
ahead.
I missed the bits.
I said Zimbabweans are tired of rhetoric, sir. When are we going to see action rather than just words and committees meeting? Your comment. Shame, it's a pity. I would really have loved to hear Honourable Mukaratigwa's answer to that question, but we have come to the end of our show and hopefully we will get his comment later. You have been watching Mineral Leakages. Is Zimbabwe's Auditor-General spot on? I'd like to thank our guests this afternoon. Fadzaija Kemu, Programs Officer, Transparency International Zimbabwe. Wellington Pasipamire, Board Chairperson, Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company, or ZCDC. Honourable Edmund Mukaratigwa, Chairperson, Zimbabwe Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Mines and Mining Development, and Commissioner John Makamure, spokesperson, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. To all my guests, thank you very much for appearing on the program this afternoon. This broadcast was brought to you by Zim Papers TV Network, ZTN, and our partners, Transparency International Zimbabwe, TIZ. Well, I'm Andy Hodges, and that's it from me this afternoon. Goodbye, and please, you all be safe.